Hey guys, welcome to 5 Minutes in the Word, your daily devotional from Truett Baptist Church. I'm so glad to be back with you today studying the book of John. We're back in John chapter 1. We're going to be looking at verses 19 and following. John 1 verse 19 says, "This was John's testimony when the Jews from Jerusalem sent priests and Levites to ask him, 'Who are you?' He didn't deny it, but confessed, 'I am not the Messiah.' 'What then?' they asked him. 'Are you Elijah?' 'I am not,' he said. 'Are you the prophet?' 'No,' he said. 'Who are you then?' they asked. 'We need to give an answer to those who sent us. What can you tell us about yourself?' And he said, 'I am the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, make straight the way of the Lord, just as Isaiah the prophet said.' Now they had been sent from the Pharisees, so they asked him, 'Why then do you baptize if you aren't the Messiah or Elijah or the prophet?' 'I baptize with water,' John answered them. 'Someone stands among you, but you don't know him. He is the one coming after me, whose sandal strap I'm not worthy to untie.' All this happened in Bethany across the Jordan, where John was baptizing." So there's a couple of things we want to look at in this verse. First off, just a couple of contextual things of what's going on. John is out baptizing people. We know that story. John baptizing and Jesus coming to him, and John baptizing Jesus. But what's happened is there's a group of people, they see this big movement happening by the Jordan River, people coming from Jerusalem and all over Judea coming to John to be baptized by him. Now this is controversial because in Jewish culture there were some sects that would baptize people who would come into Judaism, but Jews generally did not get baptized, and in fact they did not get baptized by others. They would always baptize themselves. They would go down into a baptismal pool and they would baptize themselves in that baptismal pool. But here's John baptizing others, and so they see this and they're questioning this. But not only that, culturally there's a lot of things going on with messiahs, people who proclaim to be the Messiah. And so this is causing some friction between the Jews and between the Roman authorities because these messiahs, these rebels are rising up. And so it's always causing this friction. So there's always this messianic hope that Messiah is coming, but then there's also this fear that it's going to cause problems with the Romans, and the Romans are going to come in and conquer them. And so all of this is going on. So what do we take out of this passage? Well, I think one thing we see here is how John responds in this. And I think this is where we need to land in this devotional today. John shows us a picture of biblical humility. John is not about self-promotion. This is the example for us to follow. John is not about self-promotion, but he is completely about the promotion of Christ. When he was given an opportunity to make much of himself, instead, he made little of himself. He said that he was unworthy to do the most menial of tasks. In Jewish culture, the feet were considered to be dirty. You didn't touch the feet of someone. And so the most menial task that any servant could have in a home was to clean, to wash, or to tie and untie the sandals of your master. And yet John says, I'm not even worthy to tie or untie Messiah's shoes. And so this is a perfect reflection of how John saw himself. In fact, John didn't even recognize the significance of who he was. John's asked who he is. He says, I'm not the Messiah. I'm not Elijah. I'm not the prophet. And yet Jesus himself identifies John with Elijah, and he says that John is blessed among all men, that John is one of the greatest prophets to ever live. So is there a sin for me to confess? And I think there is. How often do I find myself puffing myself up, making myself look big? We live in a world where self-promotion is everywhere. See this little device? We have things called Instagram and Facebook and Twitter where it's all about self-promotion. Pictures of my food, pictures of my kids and how perfect my life is, pictures of how happy our vacation is, and all of these things are shared constantly, this constant self-promotion. And usually what happens when I do that is I'm making much of myself. And yet Christ calls us to make much of Him, that He is the one who is worthy of us making much of. And so I want to challenge you. that perhaps John is calling us. Perhaps we can learn something through the story of this wild man in the wilderness who was proclaiming Christ. Perhaps we as Christians in the 20th century can hear that and realize that Jesus is calling us to be wild men too, who are proclaiming the glory of God and not promoting ourselves. God bless you. I hope you have a great day, and I hope this 5 minutes in the Word has been helpful to you. Can't wait to see you tomorrow.